Hello everyone, Forristicat is about to record another video here. Yeah, it's been a fair while since I recorded a video, but I thought, yes, it's coming to that time where, yeah, a couple of things have come out. I guess this video will be sort of late in regards to a lot of those respects, but nevertheless, want to put my thoughts forward on them just so I have it, I guess, clear in my head and, yeah, online for whoever cares to watch this video. So first on my list is the last season of Game of Thrones. I think because for once this was the first time where I had actually finished all the books, and unlike before where I was sort of watching the show not knowing where things were going to head in, it was a totally different experience. This time, however, knowing that there were going to be a few key scenes in there, I was really keen to see how that would pan out, and that definitely, I think, increased my enjoyment of the series as a whole. For example, the main fight I was looking forward to was obviously versus the Mountain and the Viper. And like everyone said online, it was pretty much a word for word, blow for blow, or at least felt that way, sort of construction of the scene in the actual television show. And I thought, you know what, that's fantastic. Like whenever there was something on screen which remind me of something in the books. But having said that, they sort of blend together. Like you're not sure if things are from the book or from the television show anymore, especially since they sort of jumped forwards in time and are even showing stuff which is not even the books. It creates a really good mixture overall. I think this season probably might have been like one of the best seasons of Game of Thrones. I think it's just purely because there's so much actually going on where it's just like all the actors and actresses are saying, like, it's just balls to the walls action. And whenever you have like fast moving plots, which is just full of this story which is happening, it's going to be a winner. So I enjoyed it immensely. The scenes with obviously Joffrey dying and Tyrion being blamed for it. When I was reading this in the book, A Storm of Swords, I was like, oh my god, this is actually a really interesting story. It's a roller coaster. Characters are meeting up who you don't normally expect to meet up, and without spoiling anything, that is gonna be a sort of continuing theme. And I love that. I love like characters within series which both have very strong personalities, and you think, you know what, it would be interesting if they actually came together. If they actually do end up coming together. I think the writers and authors know that putting characters you normally wouldn't expect together makes for an interesting story, and indeed, I think that's what's going to happen with Game of Thrones as we go forward. So season 4 Game of Thrones, fantastic visual effects of the dragons. Yeah, the main sort of high points, obviously the Mountain versus the Viper. Tyrion scenes, getting blamed for Joffrey's murder. Arya and the Hounds, all very classic, all very Game of Thrones standard, which is what we've come to expect. Next, 24, Live Another Day. So I was going into this, I guess, hyped for it. But then I really had to have a reality check and say, you know what? Of course, they're always going to say it's the best season of 24 yet. I mean, even Kiefer Sutherland said that. I mean, that's crap. Obviously, the best seasons of 24, 1, 2, 3, in my opinion. And now all they're doing is just rehashing sort of old stuff. Nevertheless, I think the story of 24, Live Another Day, did benefit from this condensed version, just trimming out all the fat, similar to what The Walking Dead and Game of Thrones can do with the source material of their books. Now, yeah, like everything's sort of condensed right down to the sort of plot elements which are the most interesting. I think the whole format of all the whatever they call it, CTU, or it's not CTU. All the office politics are sort of done, like we've seen that like a million times before. There's no real story in that. Having moles is just ridiculous now. It's just boring. I mean, basically anything to do with the sort of office and the things which go on there, and security clearances and tapping on the computers. That was fine maybe for the first couple of seasons, but it really did feel old in this season of 24. Once again, you have to sort of watch this show with one eye shut because there's a lot of technological things in the show which are obviously ridiculous. They can't be true. Like, for example, like piloting a drone is simple, like just with a stick, and yet they make it out to be this thing which is really important, which only one person can do. Again, there's rules of 24 that you just have to accept that Jack Bauer is a perfect shot. If Jack Bauer tortures someone, it's gonna work. Stuff like this, where if you don't understand where 24 is coming from, you're like, well, what the hell is this, cheesy as hell? But if you know what you're getting in for, then those things don't sort of bother you as much. So yeah, you can assume that things get resolved very quickly, like unlike real life. So it depends. Like if you go in here expecting something like, I don't know, Breaking Bad or Boardwalk Empire, for example, then yeah, of course you're gonna be disappointed. But I've just learned to stop kidding myself and just go into 24 knowing what I'm gonna get. And once I'm in there, I'm enjoying it. And I think that yeah, the last episode was fantastic. If only like, and sounds dumb, but yeah, if the whole season was obviously like similar vein to this season finale of 24 Live Another Day, that would be incredible. And obviously when Audrey dies, and you got Jack Bauer about to break down and cry, and he just goes absolutely ballistic, fires up these guys high above. He gets like a friggin' like butcher chopping thing, like throws it at the guy. I mean, that Jack Bauer rage, I was like, God damn, that is the moment I was waiting for. And yeah, that was almost worth the sort of admission for the price of the ticket, so to speak, of knowing what I was getting in for with this, I guess, last-ish, possibly season of 24. So as a whole, yeah, I think it was, around 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10. Definitely not disappointed, because my expectations leading up to the series, I mean, yeah, they were high because I'm just a diehard Jack Bauer fan, but then I had to sort of calm myself down, took a rain check or took an inventory. I'm like, you know what, it's not really going to be that good, but it is 24. Let's just go with the sort of action drama, the adrenaline rush that I haven't really seen on that many TV shows anymore, to be honest. I think that is really because of the real-time format. There's something to that which makes pressure and the drama more imminent, and other TV shows don't really have that sort of factor playing in for them. Next thing I wanted to talk about was Fargo. I didn't really know about this TV show, but once I heard some people talking about it online, I'm like, yep, sounds good. It's tied into the movie. Gave myself only the first episode to get into it. Loved it. I thought it was fantastic. The main thing which got me hooked in was just how serious the show sort of was. Like, I guess you could call it the give a shit meter of the writers was very high. Put me on notice that this story was in for the long haul. The characters were incredible. Obviously, your Lorne Malvo and Lester Nygaard, absolutely fantastic. It felt very real. It felt like one of those TV shows which, and this is another thing that makes a TV show great in my opinion, is when you're watching the TV show, and it sounds like silly, but when you're watching a TV show and it actually feels like, this is actually happening in a real world somewhere, and the best TV shows will do that to you. And I think a lot of that was because Fargo had like an incredible amount of build-up, which was interesting. All the characters were quirky enough not to make it boring in between. But, for example, that's the difference between a TV show where someone's just blasting everyone left, right, and center. People are dying all around, and when someone dies, it doesn't really have that much of an impact. But here, when, for instance, Lorne Malvo cuts that guy's throat, when there's a firefight towards the end, it's like, holy crap, it has that much more of an impact. And I think that's because the show was very layered, had like a lot of symbolism. The acting especially, I think, made it as good as it was. And the music was, again, like incredible. That Fargo sort of theme song is going to stick with me for a long while. And I was very happy that I heard that it was renewed for a second season. So Fargo, yeah, incredible acting, nice, slow burning storytelling. The world actually felt realistic. I actually felt part of the community. It felt like it actually was happening in real life, which in my opinion, all the best TV shows will do. And finally, the quirkiness of the characters was something I just couldn't get enough of it. Like, it was just very addictive, just to and there was so many like laugh out loud moments, which I guess you could call like a black comedy or whatever. Interesting splash of comedy mixed in there with the drama. Fantastic show, at least like an 8 out of 10, in my opinion. Next, Broadchurch. So I was sort of trying to fill in this gap that's going on in TV land now, and I was looking at some, I don't know, like top 10 TV shows to binge watch or whatever. So I watched this BBC drama called Broadchurch, which follows two detectives in the small community of Broadchurch, which is a community which sees a boy called Danny actually found on a beach, murdered, strangled, and two detectives have to navigate the complex imperfections of everyone within the community and indeed themselves in order to come to a resolution of who actually murdered Danny Latimer. Now, this was an interesting TV show. I think the main thing which was good about it is that all the characters had good parts about them, and all characters had bad parts about them. I guess similar to, and I know I use this example a lot. Similar to Game of Thrones, like all these characters have grey sort of areas. Also, the whole community feel, again similar to Fargo, was very interesting. That actually felt like you were a part of the sort of dynamics, and when you saw like a TV character on screen, you're like, oh yeah, that's that guy, or that's that guy with that other guy. And again, you had this nice interplay between characters with not that much to focus on. The storytelling felt very economic in that when you sort of it felt like a lot of story got packed into each episode. So even though it was like a short 8 episode run, I believe, you do feel like it was sort of an appropriate amount of storytelling for what needed to be said. And I think a IMDb a review of this said it perfect. It's like really a study of the nature of humanity and sort of how imperfect we are as individuals, and how situations are not really as simple, or even on the flip side, not even as complex as what they may seem. And there's a lot to sort of think about. If you're into sort of homicide mysteries, definitely watch this show. It'll give you a lot to think about. Definitely gave me a lot to think about. And as I've always said, the best TV shows, movies, video games will do that. It'll sort of stay with you after you watch the show. And it's definitely a well done TV show. And similar to Fargo, I'm very happy to see Broadchurch renewed for a second season. And I think they're doing a remake in the US with Anna Gunn, I believe. Skeptical on that one. However, I'm all aboard the Broadchurch train for season 2. Next, another TV show which I sort of caught my eye was The Leftovers, which is a show currently airing on HBO. Now, this is a show that you're really either going to hate or love. Yes, it is one of those things, and that is because there's a huge amount of mystery in this show. And of course, if you've got like Damon Lindelof writing it, then you know what you're signing up for, so you shouldn't really complain about it. So obviously, if you're not really into that sort of mystery element of shows, you're going to watch this and think, what the hell am I watching? This is stupid. And that's fair enough. I understand that. So don't watch this show if you're one of those types of people that need to sort of know what's going on at all times. Because when you watch this show, it has a little bit of answers there, but they're asking more questions than giving answers. And you're not going to enjoy the show. Having said that, what is the premise for the show? Okay. Basically, 2% of the world's population disappear. And it's without any explanation. There's no sort of research into the science behind it, or no resolution as yet. I think they're on to episode 7 or something like this, as to what exactly happened here. The main focus is on how each of these individual characters in, I think, Mapleton, New York, deal with the sudden disappearance of the people that have disappeared. There's a strong emphasis on religion, strong emphasis on how society could potentially break down in the weaker points if clear-cut answers are not given, which may almost be a meta-commentary on the show, perhaps. Overall, there's like a lot of mystery, a lot of dream sequences. Feels very similar to Twin Peaks in a way. It's also got very eccentric, quirky characters that don't feel like you could ever like meet them in real life, but they're quirky enough to be interesting enough to be an entertaining show. The last episode wasn't that good. However, there are some standout character-focused episodes, particularly the priest character, and also I think the other lady character that had to go to this convention, which has to do with sort of dealing with the official government processing of gathering information and data as to why these rather the nature of the or the characteristics of the people that disappeared, and how the family members of the disappeared, or they're called, I think, the departed, actually feel about the people around them who have disappeared. Um, but yeah, first and foremost, I think it's really a study of how would society deal with something which is really unexplained. But with don't get me wrong, it has a heavy focus on mystery. You're gonna be asking yourself what the hell is going on a lot. But nevertheless, if you're into that sort of thing, watch it. It's got me hooked. It's got a fantastic opening sequence. The music is great. I love it. And yeah, it's one of those shows which is almost very good, but again, I'm very skeptical since Lost fucked me over with the ending. It wasn't as good as it could have been. The characters in Lost were fantastic, but the ending to Lost was just very simplistically disappointing. It was like a very logical sort of ending. So I hope that I do this with this show here. Again, like with two other shows I mentioned, it has been renewed for a second season. So interesting to see where it goes. But yeah, if you like your sort of mystery, weird characters, weird stuff happening, your what the fuck moments, if you're happy with sort of not knowing what's going on, if you like the sort of emphasis on religion and quirkiness, also, yeah, I guess a study on society as to how people would react and how you would develop new institutions or cults as a result of people disappearing, then The Leftovers might be something to check out. Another HBO show I'm checking out now, also catching up during this downtime, is Boardwalk Empire. I've been meaning to watch this for a long time. With I think the final season 5 coming out around the corner, and hearing that each season gets better and better, I'm like, okay, I got to watch this because I had them off to the side. Watched season 1, was very impressed. It was slow burning, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Season 2 is like apples and oranges. It goes from season 1, and then season 2 is like the quality is very high. So I'm happy to see that the writers have realized where their mistakes are, and they're really providing just so much more emotional depth and I guess expressions of these characters and who all these characters are, and actually making us, God forbid, care about the characters. So you've got James Darmody, which is fantastic, fascinating character. You've got Nucky Thompson, of course, half a gangster, half a politician. You've got Chalky White. I mean, you know what this show is. It's set in Prohibition, Atlantic City, New Jersey. And just all the, I guess, machinations of pulling everyone's strings, trying not to get killed, gangster type crap. But it's very interesting to see where all the chips are falling and where the flow-on effects are happening in this, boardwalk city town. So it's a great show. The production value is off the charts. It feels like you're right there. The direction is fantastic. I mean, some of these like camera shots coming from above. The boardwalk obviously looks awesome. The music of like the circusy type of music is great. It's just a very atmospheric show, and again, like I guess like a study on the actual time period, which is 1920s. It's just fascinating. There's so many time periods in the history of us that it's just very interesting, and I'm really glad that these TV shows are coming out focusing on these time periods. So yeah, I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir or whatever here. Like, if you like the show, you should watch it. I'm just saying, I've been watching it, I've been enjoying it. I've heard that season 3 gets better. Season 4, I'm not sure how that goes, but I've already gone spoiled a little bit for a particular character that dies. So I sort of learned to accept that you don't want to get spoilers. It sucks, but whatever. It still is interesting to see how the story progresses to get to that thing which I got spoiled on. But yeah, Boardwalk Empire goes without saying. You already know it. It's a damn good show. You should watch it. The Walking Dead, I guess, is coming up again soon. I think a Comic-Con trailer got dropped. Yeah, I saw an interesting YouTube video clip which shows an alternate ending to the way the previous season ended, which is, Rick actually saying, they're fucking with the wrong people instead of they're screwing with the wrong people. And I think, again, it just highlights, the philosophy that everything would be better on, on HBO, because, it's just, there's lines like that, and I mean, and I agree with what people are debating out there in fandom land, is that you can show all this violence, but when there's swearing, it's like, no swearing, that's bad. It's like, are you kidding me? It's like, I don't think anything should be sacrificed in the vein of, or the idea of telling a good story. And yeah, I mean, there's a particular emotional punch, that ending scene. of the previous season of The Walking Dead, and yet they're screwing with wrong people. You're not going to hold back and not swear when you're that sort of in a pumped up situation that you're with your best people, and you're about to escape potentially. So yeah, happy to see the actual proper version of that, which I think is going to be released on the DVD if I'm not mistaken. I've been reading the comics, so I guess everyone that's been reading the comics knows what's going to happen up ahead. They have a couple of interesting story arcs. I'm just really hoping, as with Game of Thrones, they can trim all this unnecessary fat out of the storyline. There were a couple of story arcs in The Walking Dead where I think Kirkman was spinning his wheels a little bit. I wasn't sure where to go. However, the latest story arc in the comic now, which is obviously where the comic is up to, is really interesting. There's some interesting things happening. I can sort of see where Kirkman's mind is at with this. Again, it's about, I guess, the main theme I'm getting here is trust. How can you trust anyone after everyone seems to be screwing each other over? And especially with the new villain character that's been introduced, that's another whole wild card that should be very interesting. And yeah, if they cannot stuff it up as much as they did with the governor, there should be some interesting Walking Dead times ahead. I think that's all I have to talk about. So last season of Game of Thrones was fantastic. Reminded me a lot of the moments of the books for the first time because I've actually read ahead. Finally, I've caught up. So it's interesting seeing the show unfold from what I've read, as opposed to not having read the books and not sure where things are going. So it's flipped the script on me. Last season of Game of Thrones, very, very good. 24 Live Another Day, before it premiered, I dropped my expectations, just went into it without thinking about it, and I enjoyed the ride with a fantastic final episode there for Jack Bauer fans. Fargo, excellent TV show, very quirky, lots of dark humor. The writing is very tight, as with the acting, and very happy season 2 is renewed. Very atmospheric show, very funny at times, and just felt like you were part of the town when you were watching it. Similar to Broadchurch, which is a much more serious show, also set in a small community, where two detectives have to understand themselves as they understand the dynamics of this small coastal town set in the UK, I believe, where one, Danny Latimer, gets murdered, strangled to death, is left on a beach, which really tears the fabric of this social tapestry of the Broadchurch community as the two detectives find out who killed this child. The Leftovers, a HBO show from the creator of Lost, Damien Lindelof. Great show if you can tolerate your mystery and your what the hell moments. Otherwise, you may dislike this show a lot. So go into it if you can tolerate that sort of mystery and not knowing what's going on, which sees 2% of the world population having disappeared with no explanation and showing how society attempts to rebuild and re-understand and reassess themselves after this major global event, which is unexplained. Boardwalk Empire, final season coming up, season 5. I'm banging out season 2 as we speak. Great show. I'm enjoying binge watching it. Some great characters there. Some very cut and dry characters like Special Agent Van Alden, I think. I think that's how you say it. And finally, The Walking Dead. Should be some interesting scenes coming up in the comics to come. And yeah, excited for many other things, I guess. I think, yeah, we're in a good spot here. And those are the 7 main things I wanted to talk about. The rest I'll talk about in another video. So, yeah, goodbye.